Hi there, I'm nicodehaan, and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced and natural wild world.
To recover our natural health and regain our rights and freedoms, and I'm Ellen Dehaan.
It's a beautiful day in Durango, Colorado. Right now 48 degrees, going up to 58, low of 32, and there's a snowstorm coming.
Yeah, a blizzard.
A blizzard. Well, they say it's a blizzard. We'll find out.
We'll find out. Last time they said so, we got nothing.
Well, we got a little sprinkle.
A little rain.
Yeah.
Oh, a snow shower that lasted about 30 seconds.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But higher elevations, like above 8,000 feet, and we're right on that edge, so
Yeah, on the
hopefully
boundary.
we'll get some. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell, hit the like button to help our channel grow. We also post a show on Facebook and LinkedIn for your convenience. We deconstruct the mainstream news stories about anti-aging, natural health, climate, and our freedom, and do our own analysis. All the topics for today's show are in the show notes listed below in the description, so you can follow along, do your own research. If you supplement your diet with natural vitamins and minerals, then we highly recommend Mother Earth Labs. Hit the link below the show notes and maximize your nutrition with their products. We have two of them that we like, Humic and Fulvic, and the essential multivitamins. These two formulas give you all the essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids required for a healthy immune system, with the ability to access them into your body and also to detox at the same time. Really important. Make a great selection of other products that may interest you, and some of them we use. And we really like Mother Earth Labs because they're really natural products. So
And they're
check them out.
constantly improving also.
They are, yeah, they're always improving things, and they give us notifications. So please check them out. And so let's start the show. The first item we have is the Shanghai Disney. I didn't even know there was a Disney World out there.
Oh, they're all over the world.
Then the title says visitors are unable to leave without a negative COVID test as the park shuts down.
Yeah,
So-
that was very interesting. And in fact, this was also reported just yesterday on the Weather Channel.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, people have been told they will not be allowed out of the theme park until they can show a negative test.
So apparently they're having, Shanghai has reported 10 locally transmitted cases last weekend. So,
Just 10. You know, the first thing that came to mind for me was, did they test them coming in?
Well, apparently, I guess not, but they are now.
Yeah.
So they're saying that they and the lockdowns are very, very sudden without really any warning. So it says the sudden nature lockdowns have seen people fleeing shops, including a Shanghai branch of the Swedish furniture giant IKEA, and workplaces as they try to avoid being trapped inside.
Yeah, so apparently it's not just the Shanghai Disney, but it's any kind of business that's in Shanghai, in that area, that local area.
Well, I think it was I think it was, there are shops within Disney as well.
Yeah.
I mean, everything within the park was closed. But there was one thing that was a silver lining. The rides continued to operate for everybody trapped inside the happiest place on earth.
So everybody with COVID gets to ride the park.
Well, you know.
I guess they're not that sick.
Well, here's the question. You know, allegedly, you can't catch it from touch. You know, from just touching a machine or something.
No.
You know, so that wouldn't be an issue. But anyway, it says, as well as the theme park surrounding areas such as the shopping street were abruptly closed shortly after 11:30 local time. And videos on Chinese social media showed people rushing to the park's gate following the announcement, but finding the gates already locked.
What a dilemma.
Well, it's interesting, and it says I think what they're doing also, they're testing to go in the first place,
well.
and you know, people hopefully. It says anyone who visited the park since Thursday must provide 3 negative test results over 3 consecutive days. And the park was barring people from entering, and those inside could only leave once they had returned a negative test result.
3 negative test
No,
results.
that was the next. That was the
Yeah.
next after that. If you'd already left,
Yeah.
you're supposed to do 3 negative tests.
Yeah, I guess the tests aren't that good otherwise.
Well, I don't know.
Anyway, let's go to the next one. When does the daylight savings end in 2022, and what it means for our clocks, our calendar, and our sleep? So this has been around for almost 70
You know,
Yeah.
you know, That article,
Which one?
the article about Disney,
Uh-huh.
just for a minute, just
Yeah.
to finish up on
Sure.
that. It raises another question. I mean, is that imprisonment? I mean, seriously, is that
Imprisonment
criminal?
with some benefits. we
Yeah,
would say.
imprisonment. You know, do you have to pay for the rides? Do you
Yeah, I
have to
would
pay
think
for
not.
food if you're in there? You know, the question, it does raise a lot of other questions aside from being slightly amusing. I mean, I wouldn't like to be stuck in a park for 3 or 4 days.
Well, not if you haven't planned to do it, and you're planning to do other things.
Well,
yeah,
of course,
it's-
or you just went for a birthday or something.
Yeah.
It's a question of whether that really is in China. Maybe not. I don't know anything about the laws in China, but
Well, Shanghai.
yeah, in Shanghai. But
Well, the other thing that comes to mind is if there are foreigners trapped now, are they going to be contacting the embassy and complaining about this? So there might be a whole stink about this. Who knows? But I just
No,
found it
it's-
interesting
it's
that you're
just-
trapped inside an amusement park. So I guess there's worse places to be, but
yeah, but that's not the. I'm looking at a bigger picture here, and I'm looking at once again taking away civil rights, reducing your freedom to move, your
Yeah.
ability to leave.
mhm.
And,
Doesn't sound right to me.
It doesn't sound right to me. In this
And
country,
an
it would
amusement park.
definitely be.
Now we haven't gone to music parks for years, and I stopped going to Disney and all these things and it's fun, no doubt about it, and it's interesting, but it's not like being outside.
Well-
Outside, out in nature, is a much better system for me.
Yeah, and the fact is that once you've been to the park 12 times,
Well, they do change it, so there's
yeah,
new
they
things,
they
yeah.
do, but there were other things going on, and life has a way of intruding on those kinds of trips. So, okay.
So let's get back to the daylight saving time. It's an annual period in the United States, along with some other countries, that changes the clocks to make daylight last longer. In March, the clocks spring forward an hour, and in the fall, of course, in November, they go fall back. So what's happening, though, is the legislature a couple of years ago decided that it's going to be ending. So when we spring forward in the
In 2023.
2023, it's going to be the last time we move the clocks back and forth, which is a great thing, I think. We don't need it anymore. Originally, it was done for workers and maybe farmers to have daylight going through, maybe for school children, going to school in the dark. But back in the days when I went to
Well,
school...
this was interesting because it said that, I always thought that was the problem between the farmers and the children going to school in the
But it's
dark.
actually the Department of Transportation.
This says we can point to the transportation industry for the annual ritual. According to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, the concept was introduced to the U.S. by Germany during World War I as a way of conserving fuel and power by extending daylight hours.
So it wasn't for the farmers like we were kind of
No,
told. That's what
apparently
I was
not.
always told.
Yeah, so it says this caused confusion between time zones along rail lines, and the Department of Transportation was created in 1966 to monitor transportation safety and regulate daylight saving time across the country, because states had the right to opt out if they wanted to. So some states did, some states
Arizona
didn't.
is the one near
And
us.
now,
yeah.
today, that's true. But
Yeah.
back in, after World War I, and
Anyway, in March of 2021, the Senate had this act called the Sunshine Protection Act of 2021.
protecting the
They're
sun.
protecting the sun. The bill would extend daylight savings time from the usual March to November period to the entire year.
Now the question is, did it become law?
It did become law, yeah.
Did it?
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah, that's what I understood. That it was.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Okay. So, let's get to some of the good stuff.
That was good stuff.
Yeah, I guess it was. I like this better, though. Bad weather is good for you. Take a walk in the wind and the rain. And as a child, I remember the joy of being in the mud puddles and just dancing around the rain. Rain never stopped us from playing. If we were playing tag or whatever it was, we were out there in the rain. And my parents never seemed to care. You're not going to catch a cold or anything like that if you're in good shape. So
You can't catch a cold from from rain. You can only catch a cold from germs.
Exactly.
Let me see. It says the Senate passed the bill.
Yeah. I don't think it's been through the House yet. but they're passing it.
Okay.
I'm sure there's
Okay.
a lot of people. So this is a cool article about people, that love being out in the weather. And if it's windy out and you just, put your collar up and you kind of bear it. And they're suggesting here that this is a good time to go out for a walk is when the weather is
Wild and
yeah.
woolly,
Yeah.
So it talks about that. Turns out that the conditions most deterring us from taking a stroll are, in fact, excellent reasons to step outdoors.
Yeah, in the last few years, researchers have begun untangling some of the little-known benefits of walking in windy conditions. It turns out that
Wintry.
in wintry conditions, yeah.
Cities are at their most walkable in the winter when the wind disperses pollution, rain washes the air of dirt and germs, and then pavements that are, a lot of people stay indoors, so this is interesting. It says pavements devoid of pedestrians are also perfect for practicing backwards walking.
Yeah, which we do in jiu-jitsu a lot.
Yeah.
You go, actually backwards running, looking over your shoulder and things like that.
Okay.
So a study in 2021 found the best days to avoid catching highly contagious strains of you-know-what were on windy days where germs and bacteria were instantly blown away. Cities empty, well, you talked about that already, right? So,
well, no, it does say city. Go ahead, finish that sentence, because
okay,
that was
so-
something else.
Yeah, so
Cities empty quickly in the rain.
meaning you can pick up your pace, stride along the streets, usually that are filled with people.
Crowded with people. But now this backwards walking situation says that it engages an entirely different set of lower body muscles. Walking backwards improves balance and stability. Normally we lean slightly forward when we walk, but in reverse our spine is nudged into alignment. Our core has to work harder to keep us stable.
Yeah, there was another study that found 10 minutes of backwards walking 4 times a week reduces your lower back pain in a mere 3 weeks.
Yeah.
At the same time, we strengthen our knee joints and our quadriceps, which means an improved gait and fewer aches and pains.
A wild, flat, empty pavement is the ideal place to practice reverse walking.
Yeah, because if you're out in the woods and stuff like that,
Yeah,
you don't wanna be
you'll
doing
fall
that.
down.
Yeah, okay.
Trip over something. That wouldn't be good.
Well, you think about it in the city, if you see people walking backwards, then you think, oh my God, what's wrong with this person? But,
Cross the street and go the other way.
yeah, exactly.
I don't
So
know.
if you're in a country,
In a park, it might be a good idea.
yeah. So, well, you could put a sign up.
Yeah, I'm walking backwards on purpose.
Exactly. So if you're in the country, a downpour is a perfect time to walk, but for completely different reasons.
The pounding of the raindrops causes plants, trees, and soil to release sweet-smelling compounds, which then mingle and combine in the air that we breathe.
Yeah, there was a Scottish writer, Nan Shepherd, who loved walking after rainfall, noted that the birch trees released a perfume fruity like brandy.
And studies suggested that inhaling these compounds improve our mood, while the abundance of negative air ions created as the water and the air molecules collide. That's what makes that nice smell when it's raining.
That's right, ions, right.
Making the molecule with an extra charge can improve respiratory health and immunity.
Yeah, so there was an Austrian scientist that ran a series of experiments in the Alps. They were stunned to find that participants walked in heavy ioned air had higher levels of vital antibody located in the mucosal lining of the mouth, the nose, and the gut. The researchers speculated that this was the
increase in the antibody.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Accounted for the participants' strengthened immunity and an amplified lung capacity.
So if it's a muddy forest, even better. Believe it or not, mud is a boon to your health. That's mud in the forest, probably not mud in the city.
Man, probably not.
Yeah, exactly. So rather than taking lengthy detours to avoid a stretch of quagmire, just walk right through it, breathing deeply as you go.
And mud, be it farmyard or forest floor. I don't know, farmyard, maybe not by the cows or.
I wouldn't be surprised if the manure and everything like that is not that bad for you.
Oh, okay, well, I won't be walking it. It's rich.
You're not taking me up on that one?
No.
Okay.
in mood-enhancing microbes. Australian researchers found mice exposed to soil had more diverse microbiomes. And that was also mirrored in a Finnish study in which the gut and skin of children playing in plastic and concrete playgrounds were compared to those of children whose playground had been rebuilt using attractive forest floor.
Yeah, in a little as 4 weeks, the children playing on the forest floor had developed more diverse microbiomes.
And more importantly, the researchers found parallel changes in the children's immune systems, with the muddy children showing greater immunity, fewer coughs and colds for months afterwards. But they do point out that walking on the mud can be a little slippery, so
maybe restricting people indoors during a pandemic is not the greatest idea.
let's just stick with what's good.
Yes, I know. Cold weather is another excellent reason to walk. Thanks to the way brown fat works. Now, brown fat, sometimes known as brown adipose tissue, gobbles up dangerous artery clogging white fat. Brown fat is much more effective as a fat burner than anything else, which explains why thin people often carry generous supplies of this
in their bodies.
Yeah, and it's activated.
They don't carry them around.
Not in a bag or anything, that's for sure. And it's activated by cold.
Yeah, so studies found that Nordic construction workers and those who go bare-legged in the winter have impressively rich layers of brown fat. And you can shiver through a Wim Hof ice bath.
I do that.
And you can go for a nippy walk with your coat undone at the collar and your scarf unwrapped.
Yeah, so shivering is not that bad for you. It's not a sign that you're getting germs or anything like that. Shivering is just the body response that actually improves your immune system. And Wim Hof has actually proven this through the studies in the University in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So they did extensive studies for years, and the crazy Dutchman made all kinds of claims, and now
They've find out
substantiated.
Exactly. His name is Wim, W-I-M, and his last name is Hof, H-O-F.
Yeah, and he has these breathing methods that I use, and also a cold dunk, which I love.
Yeah, but Anna points out of interest as well is that exercise and caffeine also spur production of brown fat. So take a coffee.
Yeah.
Here we are, another benefit of coffee.
Yeah, and there's also reasons for taking an evening stroll. I remember with my grandfather, who was always taking a stroll, but it was usually before dinner, which I think has a similar effect. But not only does after supper walk control blood sugars, which is vital for diabetes, it helps shunt foods smoothly through the gut, meaning it's more efficient for digestion and less constipation.
And it says a dim evening light prompts your body to start making the good old sleep-inducing melatonin.
Yeah. And a wet night is even better, according to a Dr. Kate McLean, an expert in urban scents and smells. Damp nights enable us to uncover the world anew through our nose.
And there's a quote here: in darkness, we alter our primary way of encountering the world, and when the air is damp, it traps odor-causing molecules, transforming a dark, damp walk into a source of inspiration and imagination.
Yeah, and the last thing it says here, so instead of binge watching a box set, pull on your boots and make sure they're watertight with good grip and walk. One day, your body and your brain will thank you. So we have it all wrong, don't we, in this modern society?
Well, the conventional wisdom is, it doesn't, it's interesting. The conventional wisdom doesn't say don't go outside when it's nasty. It's just something that's understood culturally. We just don't go outside when it's nasty, in our definition of nasty.
And when you're not feeling well, you don't want to be outside. And this kind of contradicts that maybe you're going to get a lot of health benefits from it.
Well, the interesting part for me is that normally I would be back in Florida. I didn't go out in the rain if I could possibly avoid it. And if something was going on, I was all about protecting my hair and protecting my clothes from the wet. And here, I just take my raincoat with the big hood, and then I can hear the rain pattering on the hood, like on the roof. And so
Gives you a good
that's
feeling.
kind of fun. And I can smell the ions in the air and so on. And I just don't think about it. If it's going to snow, all right, fine. So I'll just take a coat that has a hood on it, that.
And here
and,
it's really indicating that you don't, if you don't care about your hair that much, it's probably good for you to get splashed in the face with the snow or the rain or the mud, whatever it is.
I won't be doing that.
I know that. Okay, the next article, and it's some more fiber myths and truth. Do
Yeah, we
really
had talked
need
a little
fiber?
bit about fiber in the last one or two of our episodes here.
The myth that fiber is universally healthy and necessary is one of the most persistent in mainstream nutrition. It's part of our culture. A more accurate understanding of fiber can be seen in the instance where Parks and Reese's Ron Swanson was observed.
Park and Rec.
Oh, Park and Rec?
Yeah, Parks and Recreation.
Oh, Park and Recreation. Okay, sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Reading a little too fast here. Was
Yeah.
once served a plate of vegetables in place of his normal meaty meal. He says, "Excuse me," he told the waiter, "there's a big mistake. You accidentally given me the food that my food eats."
My food eats, right?
Yeah.
Now, it
So
it says here that it conveys a biological truth. Ron Swanson's food of choice, beef, digests those veggies way better than he could ever hope to. Ruminant animals like cows are able to ferment all that plant fiber into fatty acids. And then that's what you've talked about many times.
Yeah, and since they're going
multiple
keto.
stomachs. And,
Yeah, so animals really are a keto because of their digestive system. Humans run on different digestive operating systems. Our bodies are designed to chew, ingest, and process a diet primarily composed of animal products, meats, organs, and marrow, etc.
Yeah, I found this article extremely interesting. In fact, recent research suggests that humans evolved as hypercarnivorous apex predators for nearly 2 million years. And this view that we humans don't have the physiological system to healthfully digest lots of fibrous plant foods runs contrary to everything common sense tells us. But Albert Einstein said,
Yeah, common sense is nothing more than a deposit of prejudice laid down in the mind before you reach 18.
and so it's like conventional wisdom is what I call
Well,
it.
if you ask any doctor, probably, unless he's a carnivore doctor, he's going to say the fiber is good for you and plants are good for you. And of course, the big push these days is for everybody to go vegan with all these new products, but also just because of your health.
They say get fiber, keep your system moving, and
exactly like
clean
that.
everything out.
So,
well, this is interesting because it says, but is fiber actually good for us?
That's right.
Do we really need it? And the answer is, in this article, not really. Newer objective research is showing dietary fiber is often unnecessary and might even be harmful.
Yeah, according to the Institute of Medicine, dietary fiber is a non-digestible carbohydrate that came from either natural or synthetic sources.
And that includes?
Yeah, like cellulose and psyllium husks, chitin, which I've never done.
Fructooligosaccharides and dextrin.
Yeah, fiber is commonly found in fruits and vegetables, of course. Fiber is placed into one of two categories, which is either soluble or insoluble.
Insoluble means...
insoluble.
Insoluble says it's completely indigestible. It passes through your entire digestive tract untouched.
And according to conventional wisdom, insoluble fiber is good for us because it speeds digestion up. Insoluble fiber's physical properties tell a different story, however.
It doesn't dissolve in water or stomach acid. It's abrasive to the large intestine and pretty much incompatible with our entire digestive tract.
And then we have the soluble fiber, which is distinguished that it is slightly digestible.
Slightly, not magically, but just slightly digestible.
Yeah. And according to conventional wisdom, it says soluble fiber gives the intestines a gel-like coating that some experts believe is beneficial.
And the point is that it's supposed to slow down digestion by absorbing water and keeping the entire GI tract well hydrated. But there's a problem.
Yeah, new research has shown that soluble fiber makes it easier for harmful bacteria to proliferate, potentially leading to conditions like small intestinal bacteria overgrowth.
Yeah, because the
SIBO.
bacteria live in the gel coating.
That's right.
So it says, as it turns out, humans do not need fiber to survive or thrive. So,
Yeah, this is where the myth really comes from. It turns out its origins were more of a supply chain solution than a scientific breakthrough.
yeah, in the late 1800s, grain processors learned how to efficiently separate the bran from the grain, creating ultra-fine, ultra-refined products in the process.
Yeah, fiber-free grains and flours quickly became popular throughout the West. People loved their smooth and chewy mouthfeel.
Sooner or later, though, epidemiologists began to notice that countries with higher refined wheat consumption tended to be sicker.
Yeah, on the other hand, countries and areas that didn't have access to these new grains remained relatively free of the modern diseases.
So people assumed that the newly missing fiber was responsible for the difference, and the grain processors were happy to make some extra money off their waste products by remarketing husks as fiber supplements.
Yeah, and this was the whole thing where the refined stuff was actually not quite as bad for you because they didn't have the husk in it and they didn't have the wheat germ and things like that. And then throughout the 60s, they were really promoting the brown rice and the whole grains and things like that. And it turns out that probably that was a mistake.
Well, it says the early epidemiologists mistook correlation with causation, and they drew the wrong conclusion. Lack of fiber was not the factor that made modern diets harmful, and the real culprit was lack of fat-soluble vitamins, as Dr. Weston A. Price would later show.
Yeah, one review found that plant-based high-fiber diets reduced LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, by up to 1/3. This quality, however, isn't as beneficial as it may seem.
Many substances that are known to be toxic reduce cholesterol.
So high cholesterol isn't usually the problem. It's even when it's a problem, it usually indicates that some underlying things going on there.
Now there's this article then goes on to talk about the relationship between fiber and blood sugar. It says fiber can reduce the glycemic index of certain foods and keep your blood sugar stable. However,
studies show that fiber's ability to slow digestion can reduce blood sugar spikes between 10 and 20%.
But the benefit is limited by its context. Most people eat
way too much high glycemic foods anyway, and the fiber glycemic moderation becomes completely unnecessary when you eat a low carb or a carnivore keto type diet. Yeah.
Fiber and weight loss. Well, it says even mainstream pro-fiber researchers find that, quote, the limited number of clinical trials comparing high-fiber food with low-fiber foods have not provided consistent data indicating those diets are more efficacious for weight loss than a low-fiber controlled diet, close quote.
Far from the myth about fiber being beneficial, certain types of fiber can cause bloating and pain, interfering with weight loss.
Now, a popular fiber supplement and food additive called guar gum, G-U-A-R. You've seen it on the ingredients list in a lot of products, but it's now been connected with abdominal pain, flatulence, diarrhea, stomach cramps, and more side effects.
Yeah. So what does fiber do for the body? While the body themselves can't digest fiber, the bacteria in our large intestines can. These bacteria ferment fiber and create gases like hydrogen and methane.
The exothermic heat-producing reaction can also damage local organs and tissues.
Yeah, and fiber intake may even impair fertility. One study found that women who consume large amounts of fiber were less fertile. This is definitely happening in our modern society.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it can cause tremendous flatulence to boot. A little benefit.
Don't get too close. As the fiber consumption goes up, so does your risk of developing
diverticular diseases.
Yeah, one study found that people who ate more fiber had more bowel movements, also a higher likelihood of the colon disease. So more is maybe not better.
Yeah.
I
less
noticed
is-
when we made the change, and before I ate fiber husks and things like that.
Yeah, we had
to increase-
Tuxilium.
Tuxilium husks and things like that, and I was proud. Oh boy, I had a big bowel movement. When we started switching over to keto and then later carnivore, the bowel movements became much more regular, but the amount was much less.
And that's because your body was using more of what you were taking in.
Yeah,
I would assume.
And
So-
we have a video after this that we're going to talk about a little bit. I highly recommend you watch it. And it talks about the history of all these vegetables and fruits that we've been eating maybe for thousands of years. Certainly in modern society, we've been relying on them more and more. And they become all over the place. I mean, we're getting stuff from...
Ubiquitous is
yeah,
the word.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we get stuff from Chile and from China.
Yeah,
and,
out of season for
out
us.
of season for us, and also not native to us,
Yeah.
which is a problem in
and
itself.
and
right?
the interesting thing, particularly about that video, is that it talks about there was like one vegetable,
Yeah, the
and-
mustard seed, which is the cabbage.
and that from that one vegetable came kale and broccoli and cauliflower and all of these other things that we think of as being all different vegetables.
And
They're
Brussels
all
sprouts. Yeah,
cabbage.
they're all cabbage. Yeah, they're all mustard seeds.
Yeah, that's right. And that in North America, there was one plant that was actually edible, and it was the Jerusalem artichoke. And that in South America, Central America, other places like that, there were vegetables. There were more plant materials that were edible.
Yeah.
But for the most part, almost every plant was completely inedible, and in fact, in some cases, toxic and poison.
Yeah, and this is where the breeding came in, just
Yeah, where
like
they
the
started.
tulip from Holland, where they breed certain colors. We've done that with vegetables from day one, and there's a good reason for that.
Yeah, you
The
have to.
Yeah, you have to, and there's no animals around. So if you're not, when disaster strikes, like the Younger Dryas event, where it took out most of the megafauna in North America, we find that the native people here, for thousands of years, only ate mostly the meat of animals and prized the fat, because that's what gave them the energy.
Right.
And slowly but surely, when the buffalo was gone and the white man came, then the people started eating more and more carbohydrates. And now you really, in the indigenous reservation or the populations, you can see obesity and disease.
Yeah,
and
diabetes.
things like that.
It's a problem.
If we let them control their own destiny, I think they'll get back to maybe what they used to be.
All right.
beautiful.
Research has also revealed that excess insoluble fiber can bind to minerals like iron, zinc, magnesium, and calcium. And that means they will prevent the absorption of these nutrients and force them out of the body. Excess insoluble fibers can also inhibit enzyme activity enough to impair protein absorption. So actually, it becomes an anti-nutrient.
Yeah, the last bastion of fiber's bastion of health benefits lies in its ability to boost the production of certain types of fatty acids. A percentage of soluble fiber gets fermented by the gut bacteria into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and propionate. These fatty acids, in turn, can fight against neurodegeneration, cancer, and obesity.
But what the experts are missing, says the article, is that butyrate and other gut-friendly fatty acids can be obtained in much simpler and safer ways. Butter, yogurt, milk, cream, and other dairy products are all rich in anti-inflammatory butyrate. And unlike fiber,
they don't cause gut irritation. The downsides of going fiber-free. So if you're going to try a low or non-fiber diet, here's some things you should know. Making the shift may result in some temporary changes in your bowel patterns.
yeah, so it just says that if you do experience carnivore diet constipation, ensuring adequate water and electrolyte intake can help.
Yeah, it's normal, it's natural, but it might still take a little getting used to. If you experience the carnivore diet constipation, ensuring adequate water and electrolytes, just like you said.
Yeah, but if you're young and active and happy with your body composition, you may want to experiment with adding small portions of raw honey or fruit to your diet. Only a small amount of carbohydrates is needed to keep the digestive tract well lubricated.
Yeah. The fiber in low carbohydrate berries may also boost your body's production of the short chain fatty acids.
Yeah, butyrate in turn can help maintain the integrity of your gut lining and keep your metabolic rate high.
Yeah, many people experience better digestion when they reduce their fiber intake, much to their initial surprise.
Yeah, you might experience easier bowel movements, reduced bloating and gas as you make this switch.
And then they talk about the randomized controlled trials that look at the fiber myth following 60 people with chronic constipation and IBS.
That's irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah, and they found that going fiber-free for just 2 weeks greatly reduced their symptoms.
So 6 months after the diet ended, 41 of the study participants of the 60 had chosen to stay fiber-free and were still doing well.
And the minus 20 participants who've gone back to eating the fiber regained their symptoms, their IBS symptoms.
The approximately 20.
Yeah. So looking after the research, it's clear that dietary fiber has been greatly overrated. Fiber isn't usually beneficial. Large amounts of fiber can become harmful.
And so for that reason, the article, the researchers recommend a no fiber or low fiber approach. Cut your insoluble fiber intake to a minimum. And if you do eat fiber, make sure it's a soluble fiber from whole food sources such as potatoes, sweet potatoes, fruits, especially low-carb berries, and mushrooms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the research is clear that humans evolved to do their best with a hyper-carnivore diet centered around animal products.
So animals, after all, have digestive tracts specifically designed to process the fibers and convert them into more usable energy. So eating your food the food has already eaten and digested partially some of the things that you need, it then goes into the meat and you get it that way in a form that's much more
easy to digest, and it's better for your body.
Body.
Next is that video, which we're not going to play. We just want you to look at it.
It's in the notes.
It's in the show notes under video.
It's just proof that plants and veganism is not a human diet. It's just an interesting evaluation of how the different plants evolved and how we were manipulating them and so on.
Exactly. So it's an important thing to understand. He gives you a pretty good synopsis of how these plants were developed by human beings.
I found it fascinating.
And probably as a necessity. And the next article that we're going to talk about kind of indicates why we use plants. And this is kimchi, and this is
kimchi.
Kimchi, yeah. Mm-hmm. So kimchi is one of these things that probably if you're not used to the type of like sauerkraut and things and you don't like that, then maybe it's going to be kind of smelly and things like that.
It's interesting. First of all, kimchi is a traditional Korean dish made with salted and fermented vegetables. And it comes in all different configurations and recipes with all kinds of additives and different sources. And
it starts usually with like a cabbage. With salt and garlic, ginger and scallions and fish sauce and all kinds of different things.
Korean chili. And it says what makes the kimchi special is that the salted pickled vegetable is marinated and then fermented. And going through these 3 stages gives kimchi its distinctive taste. Yeah.
There's an interesting story about the one of the warriors, and this is not completely about kimchi, but it's about the kind of similar products that Japanese did. And the Japanese had vegetables and rice mixed together, and he was in the middle of battle, so he couldn't eat it right at that time. And it was a couple of days before he actually got to it, because that's the way the battles work. And he went back to it, it was all soured and everything like that. And he said, well, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat it anyway. And then he found health benefits from it. He could go longer. He felt much better. So,
So, and another interesting thing about kimchi is the fact that it has been historically involved with an event called Kimjang, and basically that would be that during the colder months when vegetables were scarce, kimchi was made to preserve those vegetables for future consumption. To make enough kimchi to last for at least 3 months and up to a year, families would gather so they had enough labor to process the hundreds of Napa cabbages needed to make such quantities. Village-driven tradition of making and sharing the kimchi is called kimjang.
Yeah, think about it that these populations of the Asian cultures were quite large populations even 5,000 years ago. And since they had many different types of disasters and those disaster cycles that we talk about with weather and volcanoes and everything like that, then the animals kind of leave. So now you're searching for other things, and then when winter comes, these things aren't growing anymore. So the ones who survived kept these things, and sooner or later figured out that if we want to preserve these vegetables for a later time, you have to sour them.
Well, you have to do something to preserve them.
Yeah, and drying them is a part of some of the processes.
Right, and and the interesting thing about the whole about this kimjang was, once all the ingredients were gathered, the women would sit around and make the kimchi. Different groups were responsible for each of the steps, such as cutting, washing, or salting the cabbages. And then the women would squat in the backyard around the huge bowls and containers and take the opportunity to share, chat, gossip, and teach the next generation how to make the kimchi.
So we survive. Yes.
At the end of the process, the families would gather for a small party to sample the newly made kimchi before it ferments as a treat that was only enjoyed on that day. The rest of the time, the food was left to ferment.
Yeah.
But as time progressed, it's not as common as it was, because kimchi is now available on the grocer's shelf.
Yeah. And I actually like the taste of it.
Yeah, well, it says, what does it taste like?
Yeah, well, it's a sour, spicy, and savory, but its flavor profile is very depending on the types of vegetables and the supplement ingredients that are used, as well as the aging process.
The amount of time it's aged.
Yeah, right.
Kimchi is usually crunchy, but depending on the vegetable, it could be otherwise. But it's flavorful from the garlic, the ginger, the scallions. It's salty from the fish sauce and tangy from the sugar that turns into lactic acid in the process.
Kimchi gets more and more tangy as it ferments. So
So then the question is, so okay, we got all this lacto-fermentation and stuff going on. Is that good for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so things like sauerkraut, yogurt, kefir, it develops probiotics that contribute to a healthy gut microbiome that helps support the digestion, immunity, according to a lot of dietitians. Just think about it, that's what's happening in the cow's stomach, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly the same product. And that goes into the meat, we eat the meat, and we get the benefit.
Then, all right, so then how long does it last? Does it go bad?
Well, there's quite something. You know, some people remember when we use tamari and things like that. That's put into these big vats and stored under salty water for up to 8 years.
And that's how it's a type of soy sauce.
It's a type, that's a type of soy sauce. So kimchi continues to ferment once it's opened. So it becomes more pungent and more sour as time passes. It becomes less appealing to eat if it gets to the point where the vegetables lose their crispiness or the flavor becomes too sour, too strong.
So in Korea, apparently, some people throw old kimchi away, while others appreciate it.
Yeah.
You can purchase the old kimchi, this is a quote, that has been fermented for months. Usually its deep flavor is enjoyed, or people buy it to use for cooking dishes, such as a type of stew or kimchi fried rice.
Yeah,
end
so,
quote.
Yeah, you're using it more as a little supplement
Yeah,
as
exactly.
it goes.
Well, yeah, it's not a meal.
Right.
It's
But it can be a meal. In
well,
other ways,
if you add, and then you add some
fried rice or whatever.
and some beef or what, fish or whatever.
Anyway, the reason I brought this whole thing up is just the understanding that our ancient ancestors came up with ways of using vegetables that we don't. I mean, we still see it, but our modern society is not doing this to them.
No.
And when we're getting all these ads to go vegan and all these new products, they're doing none of this to it. And some of them are even grown in labs, and some of them, are
not local, not seasonal.
Yeah.
But this article is also helpful because it does have a whole series of different recipes for different types of kimchi. If you're in the mood to experiment and you feel like there's one here for a kimchi that is made with perilla leaves, which are a leafy green herb part of the mint family. It incorporates a water-based sauce that helps to lightly season the kimchi, allowing the fresh and herbaceous minty notes of the perilla leaves to shine through. So it's kind of interesting. And you can click on it and get to the recipes.
Yep.
It's fun.
So going keto and cutting out carbs can reverse type 2 diabetes. So keto might be more than just a fad diet.
Uh-huh.
An ultra-low carb diet can significantly lower blood sugar levels in people with pre-diabetes. This is the type 2.
According to a study.
Yeah, this is type 2 diabetes. They're not really talking about type 1, but I do believe there's been some studies out that it also helps people in type 1 diabetes.
I don't think it was heard, right?
Right, exactly. And you're stabilizing your blood sugars. You're not using insulin as much. Of course, people who have type 1 diabetes are born with it, and their insulin just is not sensitive at all.
Yeah,
So the ketogenic diet improves drastically, which involves drastically reducing carbohydrates intake and replacing it with food high in fat and protein.
and the latest study does indicate that the diet can prevent type 2 diabetes for those that are at the highest risk. The researchers were looking at 150 people aged 40 to 70 whose blood sugar ranged from pre-diabetic to diabetic levels and were not taking medication for their condition.
Yeah.
So one group ate their normal diet, were monitored for 6 months, and the rest ate the equivalent of just 16 grams of carbs per month, which is basically one slice of bread. So what did they find?
Yeah, by the end of the study, those with low carb groups saw between a 0.19% and a 0.33% decrease in high hemoglobin A1C, or the amount of glucose sugar in their blood. So it reduced their blood sugar.
Yeah, and the group that just maintained their normal diets saw their A1C levels drop only by about 0.02 to up to 0.1.
Yeah, but it's interesting. The switching to an ultra low carb diet could be enough to help pre-diabetics stave off the worsening A1C levels, potentially avoiding a diabetes diagnosis altogether.
Yeah, the key message is that the low carb diet, if maintained, might be a useful approach for preventing and treating type 2 diabetes. All these articles, they say more research is needed, but I understand.
Well, all the research is showing, and there haven't been many studies, but they're starting to come out because more and more people are also going keto. There's a large group going keto, and there's an even larger group going carnivore like we are, where like 95% of what you eat is animal food, and the supplementation of vegetables are really more for flavoring, spicing it up, those types of things, or maybe just enjoying a little variety. Exactly. Although I find that a good ribeye is you never kind of lose the taste. I've had this too many times, but it never seems to come up.
No. And all right, so it says risk factors for developing diabetes include being overweight, having a family history of diabetes, not maintaining an active lifestyle, and consuming a lot of alcohol and fats. Yeah. And I'm assuming they mean the bad fats.
Well, I think if you mix a lot of alcohol,
of anything, or the bad oil, the oils that are not so good for you, and
so these are the fats
food.
I think that they're talking about. They're certainly not talking about the saturated fat from good animals,
right.
Although the saturated fat is vilified for the last 50 years.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. I mean, the point is, at this stage, we've come to understand that the source of the food is extremely important.
No doubt
and
about
what the food eats before you get to it is
extremely important.
Is critical.
Yeah.
So,
and it just comes to show you when we're talking about carnivore diet, and we definitely have a lack of animal products around. We have lack of animal available to everybody. So if everybody decided, okay, we're all going carnivore, is there enough meat around? Probably not. Which means that all these fields of grain and soy and rice and corn that are out there are where the animals used to be. You know, the buffalo used to be roaming around all those fields.
In the breadbasket.
In the breadbasket, exactly. So we've eliminated the animals just by growing these feeds.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking if we leave that stuff alone slowly but surely, and probably over a decade, we'll have enough animals for everybody to eat.
Yeah.
So, and I don't care who eats the animals or who eats the vegetables. You know, do your own thing, but just understand that the history books show that we've been eating animals for thousands and thousands of years. Well, millions of years if we're talking about the species before us.
Right.
But if we're talking about Homo sapiens in the current form that we're in.
And we evolved to eat.
That's 200,000 and maybe 300,000 now they're thinking.
And
who
we
knows?
evolved specifically to be carnivores.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, that seems to be where the studies are going. People living with diabetes are encouraged by healthcare professionals to maintain a low-carb diet, which can help diabetics manage their blood sugar better, decrease medication needs, and reduce the risk of diabetic complications such as heart disease, chronic kidney disease, and nerve damage.
Yeah, and the key point to me is decreasing the medication needs. If you're on the modern medicines, you're not in good shape.
Right.
And if you want to get out of those things, then naturally find a doctor that is experienced with keto or experienced with carnivore and let him lead you. Or
let him or her.
Oh, yeah, of course, naturally. Or it. These days,
well, you just keep going.
The American Diabetes Association officially recommends people with diabetes and pre-diabetes stick to a low-carb diet, low glycemic index, high-protein diets to help you manage your blood sugar. I would say instead of high-protein diets, high-fat diets with a moderate protein.
High animal fat diets.
Yeah, exactly. Study does not say that diet alone can manage a person's blood pressures. But Dr. Dolan said it opens the door to more investigations. He says we already know that low carbohydrate diet is one dietary approach used among people who have type 2 diabetes. There's not much evidence of the effect of this diet on blood sugar with prediabetes. I think this.
Well, they haven't studied it. I think.
I think they're just avoiding. Perhaps they have sponsors. Okay, last article is a good one too. How junk food takes years off your life. And when I saw this article, I found about 5 different.
We actually found this article on in our local Durango Herald.
Yes, so then I did a Google search and found it all over the place.
Right, it was great.
So the trouble with junk food is that it's convenient, it's tasty, and it's cheap.
Yeah, and some people would say that was the benefit of it, but, okay. So when it first appeared in the 60s and 70s, it was welcomed as a sign of progress and post-war abundance.
And I remember this distinctly because at that time I was living in Detroit, and on Grand River Avenue, the first McDonald's opened. But actually, thinking back, when we were in Canada, the first A&W opened. And that A&W root beer, that was so good. And I never really ate their burgers or anything like that. But when I came to the United States and had the French fries at McDonald's that were actually at that time boiled in lard. I don't know.
Fried in lard.
Fried in lard, excuse me. Yeah, well, boiled in a sense. But they switched after a long time.
And
in fact, they used, I think first they used cottonseed oil. And what happened is the manufacturers went to McDonald's, the people of these oils went to McDonald's and said, we're going to give you 1 year free if you'll just use our product, and then you can buy it after that. And it's going to be cheaper than the lard. Lard is not really that expensive. We have a tub of it that we paid $40 for.
For 5 gallons.
We've had it for 5 years now.
Yeah, doesn't go bad.
Doesn't go bad. It's great stuff, and that's what we fry our chicken wings in when we do have it once in a while.
Yeah.
So thanks to the massive awareness.
Well, wait.
Oh, go ahead.
Back just
Yep.
Pass us. The idea was that buying frozen, prepackaged, or canned foods and not having to spend so much time preparing meals, we would have more time to spend making money, engaging in hobbies, and spending quality time with our loved ones. I know. I remember my mother. The only vegetables I ever had in my house growing up were the frozen vegetables.
Yeah.
And they were mostly peas and green beans, which are
High in sugar.
seeds and high in sugar. Yeah, we don't eat those now, but
Yeah.
but boy, she was happy, especially when they came out in the plastic pouch
Oh, she was in heaven.
and you just dropped it into the boiling water. Boy, that was just the best. You didn't have to stir it. You didn't have to watch the pot. It was great.
So thanks to the massive awareness-raising campaigns, we now know that junk food is not only empty calories, but most of the diseases of civilization like stroke, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, and obesity are linked to a diet of poor food choices.
Yeah, I think we've covered, sort of what makes the food so bad that we call it junk. And the answer is both the ingredients and the preparation methods.
Yeah, so most of the foods we consider junk are primarily deep fried, and we've already discussed what they're fried in, and they're boiled and they're grilled. So,
And in that process, a lot of salt, sugar, and trans fats are added, partly to improve the taste and partly to extend the shelf life.
yeah,
But that's not the only reason that junk food is so popular.
it's
Another
affordability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in other words, if healthy food costs less than junk food, many people would be happy to change their eating habits and start eating healthy. But this is a major...
According to the author of this article,
Yeah.
this would be a major blow to big food chains.
who have a lot of influence on policy making.
So this scenario is unlikely.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Big lobbies for food and medicine, right?
Oh, yeah, it's where the money is, and so we've talked about
So
it.
if these large companies are influencing, it's not the local farmer that goes to the Senate and says, "Hey, I'm lobbying here for because
Yeah.
they can't afford to. They can't leave their fields if you're a small farmer."
And you can't pay the lawyer. You can't just go.
Yeah, and these companies have specific people. Their only
Have
job
to
is to
hold-
lobby, right?
Whole departments.
Exactly. A recent study revealed that junk food advertisings are directly linked to obesity in young people.
They're targeting the young adults
Yeah.
and the teenagers.
Yeah, children and teenagers are much more than adults are prone to be guided in their lifestyle choices by what they see in advertising. And what's being advertised mostly these days on TV? There's two categories that we see, and we've discussed this in the past amongst ourselves and even on the show. One is the junk food and the medications, like the vaccines.
And the third one is insurance.
Yeah, and the insurance related to that. Then the second category is the shows that are coming up.
Yeah.
And that's even be more and more. I think there's less and less advertising.
Every once in a while I see a
locally,
car ad.
a car ad now and then, but because of the supply chain, that's less and less too.
Right. They don't get a bang for their buck.
Right.
They say that according to the particular study, young people who watched a lot of food advertisements consume many more calories in sugary, salty, and fatty foods than those who don't.
Yeah, although eliminating junk food from your life is difficult, we should at least be aware of how it's made, how it affects your health in the long term.
Yeah, and it's okay to treat yourself to ice cream, chips, or restaurant meal once in a while, but living on this type of food can cause serious problems for your body.
Yeah, and according to a study by the Australian National University team, discovered that the hippocampus, that's the part of the brain involved... Hippocampus, okay.
Campus.
Yeah, campus. Hypo. The brain is involved in mental health, learning, and memory. It's significantly smaller in people whose diets are based on processed foods.
Yeah, and diets rich in sugar are also linked to many mental disorders. And although the diets don't directly cause these conditions, they do make them worse.
Yeah, the brain needs sugar and cannot function without it, but too much of it impairs our cognitive skills. We also know that the type of carnivore diet that we're on actually makes the sugar for the brain. So
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Don't need to
So you
ingest
don't
it.
need extra sugar,
Yeah.
right? Those who've been eating a lot of sugar-rich foods for a long time risk developing diabetes, depression, and poor mental performance, among many other conditions that are related to inflammation that the junk food can cause in the body.
Yeah.
So they do have a few suggestions here.
Yeah, 4 steps can help you introduce healthy food habits. First, motivate yourself.
Motivate yourself. Now, if that were easy to do, we would be in much better shape as a world here, you know.
No doubt about it.
But it says, think about what you'd like to achieve with a healthy diet. If you want to lose weight, you want to improve a skin condition, lower your blood pressure, etc. And then, here's the key.
Yeah,
they say motivate yourself, but they also say in that same sentence, find someone to do it with you and share your experiences with to help keep you on track.
Yeah.
So be accountable. If you make a statement to somebody that you're doing this, then you're more likely to be accountable for it because you told somebody you were going to do it.
I think maybe finding people who are doing it and then
more like it's more like aligning yourself with other people who feel similarly and are doing something like this and sharing their experiences.
And number 2 is stop buying junk food.
If you don't have it in the house,
it's much easier. Then you're going to be searching for things, and maybe you'll once in a while say, heck with it, I'll go out and get some, but you're less likely to.
Well, but you might stop on the way home from work and and whatever, but at least if they're not in the house.
So stock your kitchen with healthy foods and snacks, and start investigating this whole keto thing and the whole carnivore thing, and start watching watch that YouTube one that we inserted in videos. Number 3 is eating mindfully. This
this is important.
Yeah, it's important. I don't like the word anymore.
No, all it means is pay attention to what you're doing when you're doing it.
That's right.
Okay. So what they're saying here is that while you're eating, don't watch TV, don't read the newspaper, don't read a book, don't talk on the phone, don't drive, and don't be texting and whatever. Don't check your emails. Pay attention to what you're eating, the taste, the smell, the colors of the food on your plate, and just be more involved in the meal. And they say that helps you. It really helps reduce cravings. It helps keeps you from overeating because you eat more slowly and let your brain catch up with your stomach, and you also get to enjoy much more about the food that you're eating.
And if you understand that if you eat a nice ribeye, you're not going to get hungry for a while, as opposed to if you're eating one of these so-called burgers or even a burger from a fast food place, you're going to be hungry in a couple hours. It stands to reason that the food is not getting where it needs to be, or the food is just no good.
It's not satisfying.
It's not satisfying at all.
And so you get cravings.
Yeah,
then number 4 was addressing your cravings.
Yeah.
And what they point out is if you're craving something, it's because a lot of times it's because your body needs
certain nutrients.
A certain nutrient.
And they're not in there.
And you're not getting enough of it.
Right. So therefore, the brain kind of thinks that if you eat more of it, you're going to get... So it's so low in nutrition that you have to eat a ton of it. And a ton of it is just not good for you. No. Whereas a small steak is very satisfying. You don't need any more, so you need a little of it. And it just makes sense if you're eating and you want to function in even the past or the present, you've got a lot more things that you can do if you're not eating.
You're not constantly going, oh my God, I'm hungry.
And all these shows that tell you, and all these articles that tell you, well, the way to eat is eating, let's eat every 2 or 3 hours. And this is the kind of grazing.
Now they've changed that.
Well, they've changed it, but there's still a lot of them around, and there's a lot of nutritionists that still go for that, especially for athletes. This is a big thing for athletes. You take your little shake with you, or you stop
to the gym.
And if you need that stuff, heck, a lot of times I'm in jiu-jitsu for a couple hours. And before that, I hadn't eaten for at least an hour or 2.
And before that, if you go to your 6:30 class...
I haven't eaten at all.
And since dinner the night before, when you get home, we have breakfast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, it says if your cravings are usually a sign you lack certain vitamins or minerals. So they give some examples. If you crave chocolate, what you need is magnesium. And you can replace it with raw nuts, seeds, legumes, and fruits, it says here. If you crave bread, what you need is nitrogen. You can replace that. Oh, sorry, I just flipped. You can replace it with high protein foods, nuts, or beans. If you crave burned food, what you lack is carbon, which you can get from fresh fruits. If you crave simple carbohydrates like pasta, white bread, etc., what you need is the amino acid tryptophan, which is vital in the production of the feel-good hormone serotonin. A bad mood could be that you're not getting enough carbs in your diet, so by craving high-carb foods, you are subconsciously trying to cheer yourself up.
Yeah. So the conclusion of this is really good food choices can help you avoid many serious diet-related health problems, such as cancer, the immune system diseases, thyroid conditions, diabetes. Junk food can lead to a higher stress and inflammation in your body, which causes many related problems.
Yeah, I think it's very important to talk about inflammation just for a minute, because it's a source of pretty much every disease, every disruption of your natural systems and symptoms of, it says inflammation is the way the body responds to stress. Although it's usually perceived as a sign of an illness, inflammation is in fact an important part of how the body heals itself. Symptoms of inflammation range from redness and swelling to pain and high temperature. When the body recognizes damaged cells or pathogens, the self-healing process kicks in with the onset of inflammation. Immune cells rush to the site, devouring the invaders, sometimes by killing the damaged cells and creating the debris to flush out of your body. All of this creates inflammation.
Yeah, so acute inflammation process continues for a long time, and it can turn chronic, leading to all these health disorders such as cancer and what we've talked about.
Rheumatoid arthritis.
And junk food contains the most of the inflammatory foods, and this leads to that process that inflames you even more.
Right.
So just not only are the foods that you're eating inflaming, the process of your body trying to heal causes inflammation also.
And then your body trying to deal with the inflammation on top of everything
It's
else.
like having a cut on your arm, and then it's starting to heal, but then you open it up and cut it again. And you do that every day and just think, it's horrible, right?
Yeah.
That's what's happening inside your body, basically.
Yeah, okay. Well, the systems that are particularly vulnerable to inflammation are your immune system, your gastrointestinal system, and your microbiome. So these are reasons why you want to eliminate as much junk food as you can. And junk food includes the overprocessed food, the synthetic food, the food that's
and as we've seen in some of the previous genetic modified, which is mostly vegetables and things like that. So I'm really thinking that if you slow down on your vegetables and start cutting them out, you'll feel better and better. And that's what we did. We started with keto, which is mostly animal food, but there's still lots of vegetables and things that we put in there. And then slowly but surely, as we got to feel better, we said, hey, we don't need this. And then now that we're almost 100% carnivore, we don't have any problems anymore.
Right. It's interesting too. We were in Florida. We spent a lot of time with friends and family, and one of my colleagues, who's a friend, also was asking some questions. She became intrigued. We had dinner with her and her husband, and excuse me. She became intrigued by the diet we were on, and began asking questions. We sent her Nico sent her some links to some of the videos that are on YouTube about this subject. And she just sent me an email the other day that said she's been mostly on the keto diet. She's given up most of the carbohydrates. She's lost 3 pounds. She's full of energy that before she was dragging in every weekend when she wasn't working. She'd be sleeping as much as possible. And now she's out riding her bike and just feeling alive. And she was so excited about the possibility. So that was great feedback for us.
For sure. That's the show for today, folks. Thanks for sticking around. Do your own research, read these articles, and especially check out that video. And I think it'll open your eyes a little bit. And then you start the process.
Great information.
And if you have any questions, you can put them in the show notes in the YouTube, or in the comments in the YouTube, or you can write me at nicodehaan@me.com, me.com. That's also linked in the show notes. So check it out. We'll see you later.
Have a good week and be well.
Bye-bye.